So I just kind of when I will say that I'm not like looking to talk the whole time. I'm not really comfortable doing that, but just when we were kind of gathering in the beginning, I kind of recommended equipment to several people who were kind of new to podcasting. So, and nobody else was suggesting it, so I thought it'd be a good session topic. So, but I guess it'd be interesting for me to know how many of you are new to this, and if you're already producing, or if you're a seasoned veteran, I guess.
Somewhere in between that.
Somewhere in between.
You want to just go around? Could you tell us what you're doing?
I am a longtime listener, very enthusiastic supporter of podcasting. I've not done any actual production myself, largely because I know so little about the recording technologies and the production bits of it.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm here right now, is to learn more about the hardware so I can set myself up to maybe do some recording.
I am the producer and editor of the podcast on race and food. We've had about 15 episodes. I also used to work for Think Out Loud on OPB.
My girlfriend listens to you guys almost every week.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. I was like, OPB? Yeah. Like, oh, my podcast.
No, podcast.
Awesome. So yeah, so hopefully I can try to be helpful in terms of, we record every 2 weeks at a XOXO outpost, and obviously there's another recording studio here. I also have my own for professional grade recorder that I use for my own stuff if I need to. So hopefully I can help and learn from other people.
Cool. Awesome.
I am about 10 episodes into my show. Started in, I guess, the midsummer, which is pretty much just recorded in like the other bedroom in the apartment that I share. It's kind of a thing where it was what was like the computer office type storage space. I just raided Craigslist and pawn shops for gear and like a folding table. Threw it in there, and that became the studio. Now it's at the point where I'm now looking into DIY acoustic panels to start throwing on the ceiling and the walls, just to make the sound better. One question I did have for I don't know if this wouldn't have necessarily been much of a topic to have a thing, but I was kind of curious how many people came to this event came from college radio. Because I did like almost like 5 years of drunken college radio back in Ann Arbor, in a previous life.
So I wish I had done college radio now.
Yeah. So it's kind of a thing now where it's like so I was completely used to the whole point of like mixing everything, talking into mics, forcing everyone to wear headphones, and like there's no way in hell we're talking if you're not wearing headphones. That kind of thing, and actually getting people together at a table in a studio to talk, because there's something I don't like about Skype casts, both in terms of weird, low quality, with the digital compression that happens to both voice, as well as the timing is off and the vibe is wrong, and you are no longer worried about one proper recording setup. You're now worried about 2 to 4, because it's a bunch of people. Maybe they have a headset mic or something. Half the time, no. I mean, there's a whole raft of podcasts and everything, but like guys just yelling at each other through laptop built-in mics. Like, yeah, no way in hell. So.
Yeah, later today, if you want, I'll introduce you to the person I volunteer for on their podcast, and they do Skype casting for interviews almost every week. And they're aware of that sync problem of the audio and the visual being slightly off by a millisecond or so. And there's a method and a person that cleans it up for them so the sync matches.
I think the only time I've ever done it was a test recording with my brother, where he used this little like sales guy headset. But it was a Skype call, but we just did pure audio because I didn't want to chance I've done like one Skype video call before, which is video, and it's like, no, there's no way in hell I'm gonna trust, American internet and domestic internet for being able to handle high quality audio and video. Like, no, we're doing this all audio just for enough bandwidth. But
You can definitely do it. I think it's just like the amount of things that can go wrong are much higher. Not just from a technical standpoint, but from an interviewing standpoint. You better be a really good interview if you think you can get the kind of like good conversation without them being in person, or they better be really good talker.
Right.
But depending on like there's some people you need to just like get it out of them, or just to sort of be more engaging or to talk more. And with Skype, it's more that's left to chance, I guess. Doesn't mean it can't be good.
I had not thought about the idea of the remote, the distancing,
Sure.
the remove of lack of engagement by the mediated distance translating into lack of engagement in real time. As opposed to a bunch of people sitting at a table and yakking about whatever.
Yeah.
And then,
Well, so there are a couple. Has everyone introduced themselves?
We have.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I want to.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Hit pause on this. But.
Yeah, I'm interested in that too. I have some
Yeah.
thoughts about Google Voice too. And,
Yeah.
so my setup, I just went through this whole, how to do this. Aaron was really helpful in giving me into the walkthrough at the Outpost, and then ended up with Concordia University as a sponsor. So I'm actually using their quiet room to record, but. The actual equipment I chose was a Tascam DR40, which is very similar to one of these guys here. I have a Sennheiser, I don't remember the model name, if anybody wants to know, I'll look it up, but it's an interview style, so it's just longer, so you can do this a little more easily.
Could you say the name of that board again that you're using?
The DR40?
Sennheiser?
It's not a board, it's just a digital recorder.
Okay.
It's a multi-track recorder, but it's basically just XLR and quarter-inch inputs.
It's the Sennheiser what?
I'll look that up here real quick. And then I'm going to be doing a lot of interviews virtually, unfortunately, but people that I'll be talking to are all over the place,
Yeah.
and unless I can go to a conference, which comes with cost, that'll be the format. So it's pretty simple.
I hadn't thought of, but no, you said about it was an extended mic. I hadn't thought. I was like, what an awesome idea to have do interviews, but with like Gene Rayburn's old Match Game, Bob Barker's weird like '70s game show extended mic thing. Just like the mic wand.
So I used it yesterday for the first time, and it turned out surprisingly well. Actually, I was nervous. Like I would have preferred to have two mics. I would much have preferred to have two mics, with a tabletop setup and just have that conversation without doing this.
Right.
I did have to edit out a little bit of mic noise from the
The
mic
lightsaber whoosh.
Yeah, but it works surprisingly well. And then I had headphones. That's another important element here, is you want to be hearing what is being recorded. So my guest did not need headphones. I don't know if he would have wanted them, but I was able to control audio levels, that way. So that's my setup.
How about you?
My name's Fada. I haven't started a podcast yet, but that's why I'm here. I do have equipment that I bought through eBay and such to get started. I get my mics usually from places like Trade Up Music, because you can get really nice mics used there for cheap.
Yeah, I live about I think I live about $10.
Yeah.
I've hit Trade Up a couple times. Also, old town guitars.
I tend to like the AKG cardioid mics because they're a true cardioid, and unlike others that can cost $500 to $1,000 each, they cost $80 each, including with the little thing that puts them in a shock mount on the stand. On the stand, and the thing I wanted something that would take digital input, because I have a lot of USB digital mics, as well as the analog plug-in mics and such, and then USB that out to GarageBand. And I'd be very interested in people who have other alternatives besides GarageBand, because since I think 2 versions ago GarageBand dumped their podcasting part of it, and you have to go back to an old version to use the podcasting thing they had set up. So this is what I use. It's a thing called PreSonus. Their audio box 1818 VSL, and it'll take both analog, old school things, and in the back it's got USB inputs, and we'll do a USB out to digital, and you can mix to things. And I did this because I know some of my things I'm going to have at least 3 or 4 people in the room in addition to me, and I got extra things on eBay. I get like Craigslist or eBay or any place I could not pay full retail. Like this box, I think it retails for over $500, and I think I got it for $350 on eBay.
That's pretty just for a single rack.
Yeah.
Let's say if we're going to do show and tell is an interesting idea.
Yeah. So that's my idea, and I'd like to hear what other people are using, or if you have experience with what I'm using, because I'm still playing around with it.
Okay, well, I'll go. My name's Douglas. I produce 2 different podcasts. One of them is about jazz music. It's called Beyond Category, and then the other one is about web development, and it's called Hard Refresh. And I'm kind of the lead producer on both of those. I have some guest producers that come in and they'll edit or they'll write or something. And then as far as equipment, I use so my home studio setup, I have what is it called? A Motu Ultralight Mark 7 or whatever it is, but it has 2 microphone preamps and basically one headphone out. So, but it probably has more than I need, and it doesn't quite have the right things. If I had it over again, I probably would have bought something like you have, with more microphone preamps and also, if there's anyone who doesn't know what a mic preamp is, that might be a great.
But I don't want to bore everyone. I can
No.
go look this stuff up too.
Especially like cardioid mics, like the one I mentioned, they often need either a phantom power source or another power source through the line that's feeding power up into them to line back and give you the signal.
Yeah.
And so things like those preamps can contain the power that feeds the mic, or sometimes you have to add something to the line that gives power to the mic.
Okay.
And then there are other types of microphones that don't need that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a variety.
And the point of a preamp is it kind of balances ahead of time before it hits your mixer, stuff like that, so you're not redlining or totally can't hear it at all in both directions.
Yeah. And then I thought, you mentioned the Tascam, and that's actually that device that's on the tiny little tripod. Is that what that is?
It's actually a Zoom.
Oh, okay.
It's got 4 mic inputs.
Is that the H5?
H6.
Right?
Oh,
Yeah. So I have the H5 that has 2 mic preamps, and then so you can use 2 kind of microphones that you could set up, for a close miking situation, and then it also has a built-in pair of, which are kind of better for an ambient thing where you have like more like a whole room. If you're recording like a whole room, it's perfect for that. But it's not so good if you're just interviewing one person.
Okay.
It's kind of a lower. It's going to capture much more of the room sound and not as much of their voice. Whereas if you have a close mic, you're going to capture more of their voice and less of the room or the environment. So, those are really important things. And I thought it would be interesting. I mean, my Zoom H5 costs $350. I think is about what those are.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get. I mean, with your laptop, you could buy. So you need an audio interface that'll go from your microphones and then move that signal in. It turns it into a digital signal, and then goes to your recording software and then records that sound. And those. I mean, I'd be curious to know what you guys are using, but that's my Motu. It's a digital audio it's an interface, but it also has microphone preamps. And usually those are combined a lot these days, right? But you can get those for even less than $100, I see.
Mine cost, the recorder was $200 new, and the mic was $150 new. And I'm using Adobe Audition. I have the Creative Suite for work anyway, so it was not an additional cost, even though it would otherwise have been, and it's fabulous. The compression and noise gating on it are just great.
On the
This 6 one, Zoom 6, it actually has a USB interface also,
Oh, okay.
which is why I like it a lot. So it both records directly to the SD card on it, or you can use it as a computer interface.
That's cool.
And you've got the 4 mic preamps plus the external attached mics.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a pretty nice one.
So I'm trying to get a signal for the laptop here so I can do show and tell. But my setup was, because I came at this from originally just thought about, okay, what would I need to do a setup, and then realized that I was most comfortable just saying, hell with it, I'm gonna do standard radio setup. So I just started. I just hit Craigslist, realized that I only got a couple. Look for just cheap mics, a couple, and then it wound up after I did a couple little tests and a little cheap little USB mixer. I think is. I'm trying to remember who put it up. I think it's not Audion, but I wound up going to again finding used stuff through Craigslist, as well as I now use a little 10-channel Yamaha mixer, which has everything from mic preamps, and it has a USB out that you can run directly into your computer to record off that if you want. To actually record, I go from the audio out, run it into not the H5. I actually have a little H1, which is like the smallest little handhelds. It has a little tripod here and then little shotgun mics. But yeah, I just use the line in on that, record, and then take the audio file from that and then eventually put it in my computer. Because I record in the room that has my computer that the mics are sensitive enough that it picks up computer noise, so I kill that. But now for me it was the thing where I just said the hell that I bought used mic stands from from karaoke bars around here.
Yeah, and I guess that's where I got those from Trade Up Music also.
Yeah, and got a wanted to get like a decent, because I knew that the board always had phantom power to get a better sound, better signal. After buying I think like a MXL cardio mic with a nice little shock bar, looked like a broadcaster's one for $60 or so, used at Old Town Music on the other side of the river. Did use that for a couple episodes and then just said the hell with it, because and found the Shure SM7B, the kind of status mic that I got used off a guy on Craigslist for like $250. Like, all right, now it was one of those weird status things. Like, okay, I'm in for it now. I'm ready to go.
Those are great mics.
Yeah, now it's just a matter of finding I just got to get a little cloud lifter preamp to handle things, so I don't have to keep jacking the gain up.
Yeah. Why don't do you want to talk a bit about maybe that both of you are both haven't said anything? Do you want to kind of introduce yourselves and talk about any equipment or technique questions that you might have?
So my name is Eric Cloward. Basically, I'm just barely getting started on this. Recorded my first one 2 weeks ago, and I've just been editing it. So I'm a musician, so I know how to use Logic Pro. So I just simply use that, because basically mine is about soundtracks, kind of like a soundtrack review type show, talking about kind of themes within a soundtrack, how it lends itself well to the movie, outstanding pieces of it, and so on. So for me, it's a lot of doing the voice part, and then fading in the music, the chunk that I want to show off, and then going back to my voice. So it's a lot of cuts like that. It's not like this big long thing like that. A bunch of research on the movie as well. For me, I have a what is that? A Yeti. I picked up a Yeti. It's that big gray one that's very versatile, and it has 4 or 5 different settings on it. Really clean. It's a great USB mic. I picked it up off of Whoop for $80 on a midnight sale one time. I was having insomnia, and an email popped in, and I was like, "Oh, that's great!" And then the next day, then a couple of days later, I suddenly got this box in the mail. I'm like, I didn't order anything. And I opened it up, I'm like, oh, that's right, I did order a microphone when I was half asleep. So I've been using that, but I also have some more expensive mics and a mixing board. And
So you did the eBay version of drunk dialing.
Yeah, kind of. But it worked out pretty well. As far as my more higher end equipment, I have an Audio 6 from Native Instruments, which is a USB sound interface. The sound card on those are incredibly clean, and they're very versatile. Has two mic inputs or two quarter-inch inputs as well, and USB out. So I use that in some of my DJing stuff and other things. So it's really nice. Then I have, I think I have another mic that I picked up. It's like $300, but it's specifically for voice in a studio, and I haven't really used that one. But because the Yeti is just a little more, it's a little more solid, and it's like this big. It's like carrying around a small little tank. It's really heavy, but it's really solid. And if you drop the thing, you just, okay, you put it back up. You don't have to worry about it.
Did you want to introduce yourself?
Daniel, I really, I do tech support technically, so I don't really have my own show. I work for PRP, Portland Radio Project, and yeah, and I guess you either contribute or you learn. I guess I'll contribute a little. As far because I've been developing this podcast show with a friend, and we've been looking at on location strategies on picking up audio. So I've looked into shotgun mics from Sennheiser 6080 to 416. Then we also looked at wireless lavaliers, or either lavalier doesn't have to be wireless, but you have the ME. You have the omnidirectional. You have the cardioid. I can't really say that word. But cardioid. Cardioid. Anyways, and you know, so between so as far as mic pickup, I mean, obviously having something. Well, I mean, we all know there are two different. I mean, actually, more towards you. There are two different types of mics. There's dynamic. There is
Condenser.
Condenser is more sensitive. Dynamic is it tends to be used on louder stuff. They have bigger. They can handle higher sound pressure level. So sound follows the same way as light. You have the inverse square law, meaning twice the distance, quarter of the sound pressure level. And in the echoey situation, so we try to record this conversation in a basement that has had a lot of reverb. I found that having something closer as with a lavalier that on the person works better than the shotgun mic, which is very interesting. I don't exactly know why. And also shotgun mic pointing up versus pointing down depends on where we are. We say we're at Pioneer Square. There's sound being bounced from all directions. And it turned out actually we didn't test the lavalier at that point, but having a shotgun mic does also pick up a lot more ambient noises, because when you point down, anytime when you're pointing at a surface that has the potential to bounce sound back, you get the sound from behind that person. So it's just, I mean, if we're in studio, we don't have to worry about none of these things. You just use your 7B, you know, and I think ideally the best. Also, I mean, obviously there's another situation like you. I think maybe it's ND47.
That's it.
The Sennheiser handheld mic. Those dynamic mics are really great. You know, sometimes they're cardioid, sometimes they're hypercardioid, and that you just point at the person. And like I said, inverse square law. If you have a mic that's right next to somebody's mouth, you know, anything far away from them is just going to be so much weaker. So you can pick up, you can eliminate a lot of that room noise, a lot of the crowd noise, whatever it is. You know, and that's what they do on news. I have not looked into, however, using. I've heard that there are radio stations that literally uses a headset mic, that they use headset mic for everything, and that is something that I'm still yet to look into. But for wireless lavaliers, I've looked into the Sennheiser MU2. There's ME2s are a little bit on the cheaper side. I think lavalier allows you that you can't portability. I mean, you can move around. You know, having the lavalier, which that's the most convenient part because then you don't have to worry about guests. You don't have to keep yelling at the guests. Eat the mic, please. You know. and especially sometimes people talk. You know, they just turn their head. And, you know, so having an omnidirectional is usually more favorable as a lavalier versus having a cardioid. I think. There's the ME2, the ME4 is the cardioid. ME2 is the omnidirectional, and then you have the DPA 4060, which those are industry standard mics. Those which haven't yet to get to test. I think that would be the one thing that's on my agenda. But anyways, so here are your mic options. Either you get a dynamic is better for out. You know, I mean, dynamic is you tend to be easier to work with, but you have to be really close by. But having a condenser, you do get a little slightly better frequency response, and you can pick up better sound. Like if you have a dynamic, somebody across the room. I mean, sorry. What was you talking about? If you have a condenser, somebody across the room, they can literally pick up that. Just somebody drop a pin on the ground, you'll hear that. So it really depends on just what kind of environment you're in and what kind of budget. I'm using, as far as you want a mic that's quiet to begin with. So it does have to, when you buy these mics, you want to look into their specs. Specs not everything, but you want to look for low self noise. You know, so something like maybe something lower than 20 dB. I'm not exactly sure what the best practice on that is. And then you want to look for a preamp that is, or a recorder with a relatively quiet preamp, so that you don't have to. But then again, noise canceling can always be done afterwards with audition.
Yeah, mine is a little noisier than I'd like, honestly. Because I'm not doing the condenser, it's not picking up all the nuance. I basically just looked at what another guy whose show I really love was using and went with that. But you do end up with a little bit of noise, which I can easily correct for later.
Right.
But it's not, you know, wouldn't be the perfect choice for everybody. The other thing is, because of this, first I was just trying to get rid of the room noise, which was not difficult with Audition, but then I started seeing these tutorials on YouTube about using compression and really sort of sweetening the audio, and it's made a huge difference. So since everything I do is going to be pre-recorded and then, you know, lightly edited and kicked out the door every week, I'm really happy with where it's at, and I'm able to overcome some of the technical weakness from the hardware because I'm going to be using the software either way. So
there were kind of two things that both of you talked about, and one was about mic technique, and so that might be a good one, because like even with a very inexpensive mic, you can get a pretty good sound if you use it correctly, right? So it might be good to talk about that a little bit. Like once you have the mic, what are some ways that you've gotten the most out of it?
So just kind of a precursor to that, one guy I recommend, he does a blog, and it's mostly about music recording, but he's really big on being able to set up a home studio, you know, outside of your computer for less than $300. That's his whole thing. It's all about how to make great recordings, especially vocal recordings, with, you know, equipment under $300. And his name's Graham Cochran. It's the Recording Revolution. So you learn about EQing and compression, and he's very big on, don't try and get the newest, greatest plugin that's going to make all these things great. He goes, you need to learn how to EQ, and you need to learn how to use compression. If you know how to use those things, that's 90% of your recording. And it's mostly geared towards the musicians, but it doesn't hurt to have those kind of techniques.
Audio Nation, did you say?
No, his name is Graham Cochran, and I think it's called the Recording Revolution.
Recording Revolution.
Yeah.
Were you talking about in studio, or like I hold a mic and we talk about techniques? Like I'm wondering, we're talking about equipment, and I'm wondering what everyone's recording needs are for their show. Are we mostly talking about home studios here, or people going to specific places, or people doing field recording, like collecting sound? I'm kind of not super clear on what it is that people need.
I was saying my thing is entirely home studio.
Okay. And you're interviewing mostly people by phone? Or no, sorry, in person?
In person, yes.
Okay.
Like just two or three people, usually one or two people around a table.
Okay.
I do a little bit of each. So I mean, I have a home studio that I do all this, like the scripted narration, and then sometimes people come over and I interview them at home.
Mm-hmm.
But then I do also but then when I use all my laptop and Motu setup.
Right, okay.
And then for mobile stuff, I'll use my Zoom H5
Alright.
to do that. So that's
Cool.
I mean that's how I do it. And either I mean that's kind of a thing is like that. The nice thing about the home studio is that you're not paying by the hour to learn how to use your equipment. You can record as much as you want.
To learn to learn to fuck up and
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like you can learn what it sounds like when you're way too close to the mic, and you can learn what it sounds like when you're way too far away, and find where the good happy medium is really important. I've found. And then actually what you said about EQ and compression, those are two mixing techniques.
Normalizing
that
is
are-
another one in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That I'm going through that. So normalizing is taking the highest volume in the whole recording and making sure that it meets a certain level. You can make it louder all the way up without exceeding a certain thing, or you can bring it all down, but it's basically kind of a total gain or volume. And then compression is more like balancing that sound so that what's one thing that is louder and another thing is quieter, they're closer together so you don't have quite as much of that dynamic range. And then equalizing is just going to be certain frequencies, so you kind of want your voice to sound a certain way in your ear, and equalizing is going to give you that high and low control.
Yeah. So one really common problem is like the popping of P's and B's,
Yes.
plosive sounds.
Yeah.
And you can
You
use
get a
EQ
screen.
to
Yeah,
uh,
but if you can
help
get a
with that a
screen
little
on
bit.
that helps a lot.
Yeah.
And you can even make there are I think like Instructables has 5 of them of how to just build your own screen with just nylons and like a sewing hoop and the clothes hangers, which is what I was usually doing until I found a used cheap holding screen at Old Town Guitar for like $5 or something.
Yeah.
Also,
So they're only like $25 on Amazon, so it's
Yeah.
not.
Eric, what was the name of that info, the person who did it?
Graham Cochran,
And what was it called?
I think it's called Recording Revolution.
What's your steps? Do you denoise first?
I do that last. I don't know that I'm doing it correctly, but what I do is I import the recording. I've got a sort of preset intro and outro, so I just would drop in the recording there. The first thing I do is normalize because the mic is recording a little too low, which is part of why I have the noise that I do. So I normalize to bring the volume up, then I compress it, then I normalize it again just to sort of reset, then I EQ it, and then I do the noise reduction, which is just an automatic function in Audition. You take a clip of the room noise and then it removes it and I'm done.
But wouldn't you have, by compressing and normalizing, you're also increasing your noise floor?
Yes.
So wouldn't it be more beneficial to take that out before you? I haven't actually done a side-by-side.
Sure. Again, I have no idea if I'm doing it right. I followed a tutorial from a voiceover guy, and the quality is profoundly better than just the raw recording.
What? Of course.
So that much is good, but I don't know that I'm doing it the best that I could be.
Do you use single band compression or multi?
I don't know.
I think my process so far is I use Audacity, and which is open source, i.e. free, and it's just still learning as I'm going on. I'm just now learning okay, so here's how the noise gate works. Because that's one of the things that in fact one of the hardware bits that I'm looking towards is getting a digital recorder that actually has a built-in limiter. Which is something I'm learning the hard way. But like I think my processing is bringing in the audio, Audacity, and then I think running it through the noise gate, where it'll kill out anything that's below a certain level, and taking that, then truncating the silences so that there's from if someone just goes for like a full second without speaking anything, bring that take that down to, I don't know, like a third of a second or so, then running it through compressing it and then running it through normalizing it, and
So one other thing that I remember I was reading about and I really liked, before you even start recording, just take like a 5-second clip of the room noise.
Yeah, really.
That way when you have something like, for me, for example, when I'm fading out from voice over to the sound channel, because there's nothing in between, you hear a very distinct going, a little bit of just a very low hiss, hum, whatever from the background noise of the voice to nothing, to suddenly the sound coming in, and it's a little bit jarring. So by having a little bit of room tone, and I just have that, so it's right between the bridge on that, so it just kind of goes quiet, and then the song comes up like that, and it makes it so much smoother. It's super simple.
If you can, I'd recommend even getting like 30 seconds to a minute of room tone, more than that if possible, especially if you're in an unfamiliar place and you're recording someone, and if you want your show will sound really different.
Is that so that you can get a long enough sample to really get? I mean, what's the use case for 30 seconds?
Well, so I mean, it does depend on how much editing you're doing. I should say that the reason why, I mean, let me take the most extreme example. Let's say you're interviewing someone on the street, and I mean, this is maybe not quite the same situation because I think most of us are using home studios, but I was talking to a reporter I knew about this, and he's out in the street asking someone, there's traffic all around, and he's doing that with multiple people, and you need to cut people's responses to a manageable amount. And if you don't do that, you'll hear, you'll just so you have more to work with in case you need to cut someone's response in a certain way. Because even if you're using someone's audio, like even within a person's response, you may want to like edit it depending on what your needs are. So you just have more to work with.
it's almost like a sound bed that you can kind of return to and come out of, so it doesn't, so you don't get that uncanny vibe of the disembodied kind of uncanny vibe of conversational, discontinuity in conversational tones. From cutting in and cutting out people.
We had to do a last minute interview with someone who was in town, and we said, I can only do it if you meet me at this coffee shop at 11 a.m. They get on the plane, and it's like definitely not ideal. But there's music, there's the sound of people.
Sometimes I prefer it.
Oh, totally. You just don't want that sound to like be jarring, to like cut out.
Oh, totally. Totally. Yeah, there's so many of my favorite podcasts are interview style at a conference or something like that, and it's you hear maybe dishes in the background. But it's as long as the conversation is clear and
intelligible.
That it's
NPR and OPB, your background are kind of famous for that, of kind of orally setting the scene, where you are before, for like 2 seconds before heading into the interview.
So what sucks is the Skype equation in all of this. Like we're geeked out right now and like pristine audio, and then like let's fuck it up with Skype. What has anybody used anything other than Skype to do interview recording?
One thing I was playing around with for a class, I never did anything with it. It was an audio class where they used Jack and what's the other software? But basically, the idea was it was called gigging across the world or something like that. And what it was is that you, by using Jack and this basically server that you would set up and get running, you could actually, you dropped your delays down to like less than 100 milliseconds or something like that. It was ridiculously small, so that way you could jam with somebody on, across the country. And so I thought about using that as, kind of putting that all together and using that. But the problem is the steps to get it set up and actually working on a Mac are a real pain in the ass.
So both parties need to use it too?
Yeah, both parties need to use it, and basically it'd be this server talking to that server and opening up a straight tunnel across that.
Gotcha.
But what that does is then you still might have a slight delay, but your audio quality is really, really good, because basically you're fat lining over their computer as opposed to like going through the phone lines.
Yeah, I think my take on it was, I think I wasn't worried about delays. There's always a little bit of delays which screws it, but it's just vocal quality.
Audio artifacts and just compression.
Yeah, I can't. The number of, I don't think I've actually smashed one, but the number of like Sony Discmen that I wanted to just throw against the wall whenever you hear that digital squawk. You know, so when something recording, it's just like, I don't know.
I think when it comes to remote interviews over telephone or lines and everything, it comes down to how much are you willing to pay. You know, Terry Gross of Fresh Air, WHYY in Philadelphia, she hardly ever interviews anyone in studio. She has ISDN lines that NPR pays for through all, and that person walks into a station in Santa Monica or St. Paul, and the ISDN interviews straight to Terry Gross. They never see her face, etc., etc.
I'm just gonna do that.
Yeah. So if you can pay for either an ISDN on each one or a T1 on each end, and you have to pay for it on each end, or fiber on each end, you will have a pristine, non-delayed Skype, Google Hangouts, or Apple FaceTime, or whatever, or your audio remote recorder, whatever. If you don't want to pay for that, then you have to do cleaning up, either visually to match the sync of the visual to the audio, or to cut out all the pauses while they were waiting to hear what you said on the other end.
There's got to be
one other trick I've heard actually. I haven't done this myself, but you do a Skype or whatever channel to talk to them, but then you tell them just set your iPhone on the table, hit record, and email me the file later.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's going to be a much
that's
better
what I've read
recording
that people
than
do.
the Skype connection.
Oh.
And you're not going to.
And you have to put on headphones so they can hear you.
Yeah,
At least,
yeah,
At least the,
Could you say that one more time, Aaron, slowly?
yeah.
Yeah, you just tell the person on the other end to set their iPhone on the table, hit record.
Yeah,
Like
that
they
voice
get
note.
their
Yeah, you have
recording.
them record on their end and then
Yeah.
send you the file.
Yeah, your
That's
whisper
what
down
I've
your
heard
voice
about.
That's
or
smart.
something like that.
Yeah,
Super cheap way to
There
get
are-
yeah,
much better recording than directly from Skype.
yeah.
There are also a couple of services that are probably somewhere in between. You might have to do some cleanup, but it might be somewhere in between Skype and actual using an actual studio mic. One is called Zencaster, and the other one's called Ringer. Both of those places having some technological bit, of course, dropped the last vowel, so it's Zencaster.
Yeah, it's Web 2.0.
Zencaster.
Web 2.0, baby.
Right,
That's how you
exactly.
gotta name it.
So, and I've used Zencaster to record for like a freelance piece I did, and it was, so there, in Zencaster's case, it's a browser. It's basically, you log onto a browser and I send that link to the person I'm talking to. And you both sort of enter this room on the browser, and then it'll automatically record both of your tracks separately, and then it'll upload them to Dropbox. I definitely recommend asking him to have like some kind of headphones on. The audio I got from Zencaster, I don't think they had mics was good enough to use in Bitch Media's podcast, whatever that means. Like that's, they have a pretty good audience, but so there are like people trying to fix this problem, but a lot of them are still like in beta, and I know Zencaster is free right now, so if you try it and it doesn't work, it's like no big deal. The other thing, cost-wise, which is like in between free and ISDN, is a tape sync, which is basically when, let's say I'm in Portland and you're in New York, and I want to talk to you on the phone. I can say, hey, Douglas, I'll pay you $100 to go and you bring your fancy microphone and hold the mic up to your mouth while I talk to you on the phone. I got paid about $140 to do that last week or a couple weeks ago, and that included mileage and all that. But that's like an in-between, depending on your budget.
And what was that called again?
It's called Tape Sync. Tape Sync, and there are independent audio producer forums where I basically get an alert that says, hey, I need a tape sync in Chicago at 10 a.m. at this place. Who wants to do it? And so there are people out there who are going to be willing, including myself, to go somewhere and record that for you. A lot of independent podcasts that don't have ISDN resources, like 99% Invisible, so many of their interviews are actually done by tape syncs, and then you can't actually tell because the producer will send you that audio, and so it depends on what your needs are. Though, if you're recording a super long conversation, that might not be the best option, but there are other workarounds, there are other ways to try to do that.
Where do you find people that do tape sync?
So there's a group called the Association of Independents in Radio. It's basically resource for audio freelancers, both in terms of just getting ideas and job postings, but also like temporary gigs. And there's like an online listserv. There's like a listserv called Air Daily.
That's great.
Yeah. So actually, if any of you need that, you can send and like I can give you my card, and if you say like, hey, I need this, can you post it to the forum? People are usually pretty fast about it because a lot of independent producers don't make a lot of money. So
How do I get to be one of those people?
I don't know if this is I don't think this is necessarily probably, which means it's probably not related to the current topic, but I don't know if there's going to be a session today on just pure how to improve speaking ability, because of my
They have sessions later this afternoon.
okay.
It's on the hosting and things like that.
you mean as the host, how to be
Yeah,
a better host?
Both how to be a better host and also how to from somewhere between enunciation and elocution.
So basic mic technique.
Basic mic technique, but more so it's speaking, because it's kind of thing where like and there's no better way to hate your own voice than to have to like edit it for hours on end, and you learn all of the conversational foibles and crutches that you rely on to the point of wanting to like commit bodily harm in certain cases. Like I hate the fact that I use the word more times than I use the word like as a filler, but
A lot of it just is practice. I mean,
Yeah.
you would just record yourself off of something, not anything, but you practice those things. I mean, I was a vocal performance major in college.
okay.
The only reason you get better is because you practice every day. You
Yeah.
can't just go, oh yeah, I know I do that, and then practice it, because
also-
you're still going to do it because it's a habit.
You can also prepare more depending. I'm not suggesting that you're not, but it.
Oh, I'm really not prepared at all. So this is
Well, even
yes,
little
I'm
things that-
improvising.
Even little things like writing down the precise wording of your question, or
Yeah.
if you're scripting, writing for radio is a specific thing that's really distinct from writing on print. When you write for radio, commas are your enemy, and you should write like you're getting paid by the period, like short, concise.
That's a good tip. That's a good tip.
It just isn't totally obvious until just try reading the lead of a newspaper out loud. It just sounds weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. If anybody isn't listening to the How Sound
Yeah.
How Sound is
podcast
great.
Yeah.
and using transom.org, those are
Yeah.
both great
How
resources.
sound?
How Sound
Okay.
Yeah.
and
House Sound is a
transom.org.
Transom also has a gear guide that can be really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are great resources for those.
That's how HOW sound
Yeah, How
Yeah.
Sound, all one
And
word.
then
And-
transom is just
and transom,
Transom, TRANSOM.
like a window.
Like
Yeah.
a window transom. Okay.
.org.
Not
yeah.
not transim like
No,
a-
transom.
Okay.
Yeah, see, I need to practice my enunciation. There are some actually, there are some workshops at some of the theater places in town. I took a speech course over at Portland Actors Conservatory that was specifically about vocal technique, and so there are courses that you can do, and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
I mean, taking voice lessons would be a huge thing. I mean, I recommend that to anybody. So,
Yeah.
because I started singing when I was in high school, which is part of the reason why my voice is much more resonant. Yes, I have good genetics for it, but when you hear me speak, I have a little bit more on the low end than your usual person does. Because most people learn to speak right through here, and that's your enemy. And that's when you start having a lot of people, they sound like this. But if you learn to relax your throat and relax your voice, it's what really good DJs do. I mean, that's why they, the guys with the relaxed, easygoing voice. Hey.
A DJ voice.
Paul,
Yeah,
Mr. DJ.
that's the thing about vocal. One of the things I did want to do for vocal lessons, but I learned how to sing in choir in high school, so I could sing. I can sing properly. I cannot speak properly though.
Yeah, and that's where the acting resources and workshops will really help, because that's exactly, the actors are just looking for that, the vote, rather than the singing resonance type, they're looking for the projection and the
Yeah.
enunciation.
But the thing that'll make the biggest
Yeah.
difference is just sit down, like you said, write what you want down,
Yeah,
and sit down and record it, and then listen to it, make notes about what you did wrong, throw it away, do it again. And if you do something like that multiple times, it's just like a singer does with a song. After a while, you'll start to go, okay, I want to change this, and you'll focus on that one little thing that you want to change. Maybe you say, like you said, you have a phrase that you say all the time that bugs the crap out of me.
well, this is a good way to practice not saying that phrase.
When I'm not prepared, I waste a lot of time basically doing verbal throat clearing. Like, I want to ask a question about, and I've been thinking about this idea, and I just feel like, blah, 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 blah. And it's just 30 seconds later, and then I listen back to it, and the only person, this is only helpful to me in terms of coming up with the question, and I have to cut the whole thing out.
Yeah, just the amount of editing, the amount of God knows how many hours of just cleaning up my own vocal own stammers.
Do you ever, have you ever tried, since you tend to work more off the cuff, have you ever tried recording, then logging what you, as kind of a process of drafting a script? I know that some radio people do that. They will basically record what they're saying off the cuff, listen back to it, and then develop a script off of that, and then their final will be actually delivered on the script, off the script.
That part I've never done. I think the only times I've ever done any sort of preparing was just kind of working off of an outline and going from there, and even but I don't think I guess looking at it now, it is not the most effective.
Well, that's where, again, I've heard interviews with radio people is I just was not making any progress writing my script, so I just started recording myself, then I listened to that, and then from that process got a script that sounded very natural, sounded off the cuff, but it's actually completely scripted.
That's a good idea. And I actually ended up doing that on my first one because I was trying to just do it kind of off the cuff, because I'm usually pretty good at that, especially just speaking. But I found that I was getting too much in my head, and I would be and like you were saying, I go here, then I'd go there, and I'd be like, So finally I just sat down and basically wrote, about half a page of the main things that I wanted to say. And it was and it flowed so smoothly, and it sounded like, there was one part where it sounded like it was a little bit red, but for the most part, because I've done enough acting and singing, it was able to flow pretty smoothly. And I practiced reading like that as well for a long time, and reading out loud and doing scripts and other stuff like that. So it does make a huge difference.
Yeah,
and then your editing goes down dramatically because you don't have to go, oh, that sounded bad. Oh, that sounded bad. Oh, that sounded bad.
Yeah. 6 minutes talking about pro wrestling, let's pull that out again. But to bring this, because I posted a topic about hosting improvements, as well as creating a compelling enough show to have people who don't know you personally listen. And I think it was one of the tips, maybe we shouldn't all record after drinking a good amount of beer.
Or should start.
No, what
It's a very personal thing.
Yeah, I got almost 3
And the
hours.
style of show you're going for.
Yeah, I got almost 3 hours of two of my friends and myself talking about Neil Breen movies after we watched one of his and had a hell of a lot of whiskey sours. So that's going to take a while to edit down.
I just want to. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm just sorry. I'm just making snide comments on the side.
Oh, feel free. Man.
I'm sure there are lots of podcasts out there that are 3 hours of guys sitting in their basement after drinking too many whiskey sours, and they might have a huge audience. So, there you go.
Or in Oregon, Washington, or Colorado, maybe something else.
Yeah, well,
There was actually kind of a funny thing along those same lines. There was a group that got together. They got drunk, wrote a script. Then they got all the stuff together, and then all the actors got drunk, and then they filmed it, and it was like a Star Trek kind of thing. And you watch them, they're like, "We're gonna go to planet Zenamaverziger." So they're trying to remember their lines, and they're all blitzed out. It's like a sci-fi version of Drunk History. Yeah. So the people who wrote it were drunk, and then the people who acted it were drunk. And oh my gosh, it's cool.
and you just never know what's going to hit.
It's like the show version of the adult soapbox derby, where the entire point of it is to be under the influence through the entire process. But
so it looks like lunch is here. One last thing. I've
have
not
one
done
last
this,
thing also.
so I haven't.
Concluding remarks.
I haven't wanted to mention it earlier, but a friend of mine has a podcast. It is a conversation show between he and another guy. They're just co-hosts, and it's a lot like this. They're talking about their interests, whatever. They do live. They use Google Hangouts to do live streaming. That is then recorded and archived on YouTube, and then a transcript is automatically created from that.
They don't do that anymore, right?
Do they not do transcripts anymore?
No, I mean the Google Hangout. It's only.
Oh, Hangouts on air.
Only.
Well, it's going away from Google Hangouts, but it's becoming YouTube Red. So they're both owned by Google. So you'll be able to do it through YouTube Red now.
Oh God, which means you have to buy the goddamn app anyway. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's their business model. The money, like I said, it can be had if you're willing to pay the money.
Burn down Silicon Valley.
Yeah. No, yeah. Like I said, I hadn't
used
used it, but I thought that was interesting.
Is that what you're saying? I mean, what is?
So instead of using Skype, they're doing that. It has the extra benefit of being live streamed as well, so potentially bigger audience. And then the transcript that's created by YouTube is useful for SEO and, you know.
Helps you edit too.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I just one thing that I want to add on Skype. Everything you do is always garbage in, garbage out. So the first thing you want to do on Skype is make sure you turn off the automatic gain control.
Oh. Yeah.
So you watch your volume in, you know. So then, you know, the Skype is famous for that thing where when you stop talking, all of a sudden the room noise is like just yeah. So you turn that off, you don't have that problem. And
Thanks, everybody. Sorry to go.
and Skype is, I mean, and there's no reason why you can't do interview over Skype. Skype's voice is really good, and you have to wear headphones. When you don't wear headphones, they do the acoustic noise canceling where it just degrades your audio.
Yeah.
So that's the two things about Skype.
Cool.
And there's no reason why you can't use Skype and or use FaceTime audio. I think those are the two things you want to do over the thing. And the Jack or the remote musician collaboration thing is a really great tool as well. What that does is it syncs up. It brings up your audio, so you don't hear people on the other end in real time. They don't hear you in real time either, but they bring it together. So they look at the network delay and then they take that out. So that's, you can almost have a conversation without any delay. Those are good tools.
Cool. And I just wanted to share before everyone takes off, because I know everyone wants pizza now. The reason I shared about the PreSonus and everything is what I was looking for, I remember specifically, was lots of preamps and lots of lines in, 2 lines out, boards, including they all have like digital USB or some digital out, FireWire or whatever, Lightning or whatever. The problem was when it got to GarageBand or whatever your mixing software was, it would only go in 2 channels, because they say we only have 2 channels going out, therefore it only goes into 2 channels in your GarageBand. I wanted something that it was digital out, and then I could choose multiple channels to put it in the GarageBand and do my mixing there down to 2 channels. And PreSonus will. It has, you can either do it direct to GarageBand or it has other software you can have in between. Cool. You know, that's why I went with it, you know. As I do more of it, maybe at another one of these meetups, I'll tell you how it works. Yeah.
Thank you.
So just one other quick thing. The other thing I like about the Yeti is if you get something like an Audio 6, you can run the Yeti right into, actually I don't think you need the Audio 6, but the Yeti, if you, Mac has this special kind of keyboard thing, or not keyboard thing, but a thing for photographers and allow them to offload their images from iPads. So it's almost like a reverse Lightning port. So it goes into a Lightning port, then it plugs into a USB cable. You plug that into a powered hub. You can take your Yeti, plug it into the powered hub, and as long as you got power come through that hub,
Right.
now you can record it right in the GarageBand.
Same is true of the PreOnus. It'll take the USB in and I can put it into the iPad GarageBand and do the same recording there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So far, so. Thanks, everybody.